Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa ashabihi wa azwajihi wa zurriyatihi ajmain. So this is a question related to a series on Islamic constitutionalism. And the question is, so it's a two-part question. What's the difference between, so that's the first part, what's the difference between Muslim secularist and Muslim modernist? So that's a good question. What's the difference between, how we can differentiate between a Muslim secularist and Muslim modernist from an ideological or conceptual point of view? Obviously, we are not trying to judge individual people, as I keep saying that. You can't judge people based on, or you can't box people based on their general, tendencies. So, and what we are doing here is nothing to do with judging people. Even though obviously we have to talk about people and things. But the main thing is understanding concepts and the difference between them. Anyway, so what's the difference between a Muslim secularist and Muslim modernist? And the second part of this question is, or related part of question is, how can we distinguish, how to distinguish between a modernist from secularist. Okay, so we'll try to provide at least initial response to this question. On the face of it, it seems a very straightforward question, but might have complexity which we haven't foreseen. So let's try step by step. Obviously, any answer to this question would depend on our understanding of what a Muslim is, for example. In secularism, our understanding of and our understanding of modernism. And depending on what we mean by these, our answer to these questions will vary. And obviously, probably this is not the main focus of the question, because we're assuming that we know what a Muslim is, generally speaking. So what we need to focus on is first trying to understand what secularism is, and then what modernism is, and how are they related to each other. What is the relationship between them? And obviously, there are four types of basic relationships we know from Islamic Islamic logic. For example, two words can be synonymous, two words can be antinomous, and they can be what we call the relationship between can be khas or mutlaq or khusus or umum wajhi. So these are four relationships, and probably we will try to use these four rubrics to try to understand the relationship between secularism and modernism. Okay, so let's start. Now, when we talk about secularism, when people talk about secularism these days, their focus is mainly on the separation. So, for example, in Collins' dictionary, it says that secularism is a system of social organization and education where religion is not allowed to play a part in civil affairs. So, separation of religion and civil affairs, for example, or public affairs. Uh, and I think this is Oxford Dictionary. It says that the principle of secularism is the principle of separation of the state from religious institution. So one meaning of secularism is, and that seems to be a more popular one, and that's why probably it's not the exact or correct understanding, um, is that of separation between religion and politics, separation of state from religious institution. So state is not run by religious authorities or religious principles, or it's not justified on that basis, generally speaking. Obviously, there are always exceptions to these broad rules. Um, but secularism, in its basic understanding, doesn't mean separation. Separation might be one of the corollaries or one of the consequences of the meaning of secularism, but secularism doesn't necessarily or fundamentally mean separation between the state and religion. Yeah, it does mean that a state is not run on religious principles, but that doesn't mean that the state is has no authority on religion, for example. So, because most secular states have some sort of, or at least fundamental authority on religion, in a sense which I'll keep more undetermined at this stage. So, what's the basic meaning of so separation is not really the basic meaning of secularism. It might be a consequence, or a particular conception of separation might be a consequence or corollary of the conception of secularism. But today, what we mean by secularism, or the fundamental meaning of secularism, is not separation. It's more fundamental than that. So, what's the more fundamental meaning of secularism? Secular. I think it's Britannica Online. Um, hits the nail on the head in the sense that it gets to the point. And it says that secularism, any movement in society directed away from otherworldliness of life on earth. So secularism is basically, in its generic form, turning away from the otherworldliness and focusing all the attention of a society on this world. So secularism is a form of this worldliness. So if your social institution and state institution and educational institution are based on and are justified on the basis of their focus on this world and making this world a better place, etc., and have nothing to do with otherworldliness, then this is what secularism is really. Any movement in society directed away from otherworldliness to life on earth. So in this sense, for example, we can't say Christianity is secular. So when we focus on this state, we say Christianity is not secular, it is anti-secular, for example. That is, its focus was as a civilization and as a religion on other world, the world to come, not this world. On the other hand, Christianity had also its own secularism in the sense that it, in its focus on the other world, it didn't have much to do with or much to say about politics, for example, or political institutions. So it sort of seceded part of it to the secular authorities, Roman authorities, and Roman law. But that was the outcome of that sort of secularism was, or that sort of separation was the outcome of a focus on otherworldliness or a particular conception of otherworldliness. So, and this Britannica definition is supported by the root of the word secular. The word secularism is derived from Latin word saeculum. I think that's how it's pronounced, saeculum. Which originally meant generation or lifetime, also for century, your time, but also by extension means life on this earth. So this world or this worldly life. Okay. So secular is a conception of time, 100 years, 110 years, longest fixed interval of time. So it's close to the meaning of our word century. And from there, the meaning which I mentioned earlier, generational lifetime. uh, gets its so seculum gets its meaning of generation of or lifetime, and from there, by um, association, I guess, seculum gets the meaning of life in this world, and um, and this world as against this sacred world, and anything to do with this world was called seculum, or secula. For example, it was applied to the games they held in Rome. For example, there's actually a good article in Oxford Classical Dictionary on this seculum by Susan Dunning, and it is available freely. We can read a bit its summary part at least. So this the article was referring to seculum. So you can read it full article free of charge. So in Roman conception of times, the seculum became the longest fixed interval, calculated as a period of 100 or 110 years, as opposed to example a lustrum, which only mean 5 years. The term originally indicated a generation or lifetime. But greater significance developed through its association with ludi secularis, secular games, which were held, I guess, to celebrate seculum. Like, we celebrate New Year and millennium, etc. So they celebrated century, which were performed to celebrate the advent of new seculum in Rome. Through the secular games, the emperor advertised his role in establishing his dynasty and ushering in an age of peace. So it's also related to peace in this world. Emperors who wished to capitalize on this expression of authority made official references to the seculum in coinage and inscription if they were unable to hold the games during their reigns, because obviously probably their reign started and finished before that, thus creating a close link between seculum and imperial families and political control. In late antiquity, the Christianization of the empire led to other usage. Because of its association with political power, the seculum came to signify the present age of the world, this world, in contrast with eternal heavenly realm. So this age of the world, it could also it could also be applied to a new Christian era, for example. Yeah, so I mean there's a lot more on this, but we get the idea here, where this worldliness come in the word secular. So secular is any movement, social movement, political movement, which focuses on this world. Now this focus can take different forms. Now the focus so for example, you can focus on this world, but treat this world as means to improve your eternal life. So this world, so that won't be a secularism, because you're focusing on this world as a key to other world. So your real focus, or your real telos, or your real destination or end, and the focus of your practices is the eternal world. But since there's no other way to get to this eternal world except through focusing on improving or doing certain things in this world, so that's this worldliness, but that this worldliness is focused on other worldliness. So that cannot be secularism. But on the other hand, for example, you can say this worldly activities have nothing to do with other worldly activity. So we have this world and we have a specific rule for this world, and we have other world, we have a specific rule for other world, and these two activities are separate and governed by separate rules. So I guess separation comes here in certain conception of secularism. You can totally deny the other world, so that will be a full-blown secularism, or you keeps other world as well, but you say that the main focus should be on this world and the other world is subordinated to that. Or for example, certain type of Protestant secularism said that your focus is the other world, but you can't know. You would be successful in the other world only if you are successful in this world materially, for example. And whether you are elect, the one who will be successful in the other world, can only be known through signs in this world, and those signs are the signs of success. So that produce a typical Protestant capitalist who wasn't focused on earning money and thrift and all that for its own sake, but because he had just rewarded that activity on the basis of certain religious conception, certain conception about the other world. So this is sort of otherworldly secularism. So what I'm trying to say is that secularism can take different forms. Okay, secularism is this worldliness. Okay, and secularism can take different forms, and depending on, and modernism is a form of this worldliness, but particular conception of this worldliness. So we can say that every modernism is secularism, but not the other way around. There are secularisms which are not modernists. For example, Christian secularism is not modernism, for example. Anyway, I think it has already gone too long, so we'll pick this up next time from where we are leaving it today, and we'll try to answer the questions in the second session, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.